This video was made possible by Squarespace. Build your beautiful website for 10% off over at squarespace.com/HAI. As we all know, Australians are terrible people. They're hell-bent on exclusionary policies that keep these cute little guys away from the southeast, all because, well, I actually don't know why. I should look it up. Okay, so as it turns out, dingoes suck and Australians are alright. In summary, these beasts eat sheep and make them deceased, so increased police and this fence keep them from the southeast and help decrease the feast. Capiche? Good. Now to unsummarize. Dingoes are like dogs, but worse. Instead of eating Purina, they'll eat anything. Kangaroo, rats, cows, wallabies, sheep, fish, etc. And that's a problem because farmers like their sheep and cows alive. Dingo attacks on humans, while rare, have also happened. In the most notable case, a 2-month-old baby girl was taken from her tent by dingoes and killed while she and her parents were camping at Ayers Rock. The mother of the girl was tried and convicted for murder and spent more than 3 years in prison before it was proven that the dingoes killed the girl. She was released and given $1.5 million in compensation, which sounds nice, except her legal expenses amounted to over $4 million. So she wasn't happy. But that case really has nothing to do with the building of the dingo fence because this fence was built in the 1800s. What you have to remember about Australia is that almost everyone lives here. In fact, only 18% of the population lives in the Northern Territory, West Australia, or Southern Australia, even though these regions account for 63% of the area of the country. Now, a big reason so much of the population lives in the southeast is because it's the most fertile area, and since sheep eat wheat in the southeast, I'm just kidding, I'm not doing this again. Because this area is more fertile, this region is where most farms are, and as we learned earlier, dingoes plus animals equals just dingoes because they eat everything. And just as an only somewhat related side note, there's a cattle farm in Australia that's larger than the country of Belize. Moving on, in order to separate the fertile populated area of Australia from the dry, deadly animal region of Australia, the government built a 3,488-mile long fence. Now, this fence didn't even start as an anti-dingo fence. It was originally for rabbits. In 1859, 24 rabbits were released into the wild in Australia by Thomas Austin, a guy whose only legacy is doing exactly this. From those 24, the population of these crop-eating demons grew to 600 million, and so the first wave of fence building was all centered around creating rabbit-free areas where settlers could grow food. As you may know, Australia has had a long and respected history of fighting animals, which came to a climax when they literally had a war, like with guns and soldiers and all that. They literally had a war with emus. With the rabbits, although, as it turned out, the fence pretty much sucked at controlling them, something about them being able to jump or something. But as dingoes grew in population and got more destructive, the government decided they needed to protect the farmland and spent millions and millions of dollars to make the fence bigger. Now to address the elephant in the room. I know you're all waiting for a Donald Trump wall joke, and you're not getting it. Now, this fence was built in sections at different times, but by the mid-1900s it was complete, and this fence is immense. It stretches 3,488 miles long. That's longer than 2 football fields, and 6 feet high, and it's continuous. It spans from South Australia all the way to about 100 miles west of Brisbane, and it does a decently good job of keeping the dingoes out. If you overlay the density of dingoes, you can see that they're significantly less common in the southeast, and so the fence sort of works. As crazy of a concept the fence is, it is economically sound. The fence costs about $10 million yearly to maintain, while increased dingo attacks on livestock in the southeast would cost many times more than that. As crazy as it actually is a good deal. But what's also a good deal is Squarespace. For most businesses, you want people to find you, and the way people find businesses is the same way that you find businesses. You Google them. Whether you run a company, a YouTube channel, a podcast, or anything else, you want your first impression to count, and Squarespace is the expert in exactly that because their customizable templates help you make a website that you can be proud of. Whether it's a dingo fence or a website, when making a decision, you have to figure out if the benefits outweigh the costs, and overwhelmingly, they do with a Squarespace site, especially since you can get started today with 10% off over at squarespace.com/HAI.